Hello and welcome back. This is Dawn with another video for Picket Fence Studio. So today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different for me. I'm going to be creating my very first easel card. And I thought that this new You Are Quacktastic stamp set by Nook would be perfect to create this card with. It has these cute little ducks in here, and here you can see they're all in one stamp following the mama duck, but then they've also got all the individual ones going in the opposite direction along with some other little scene creating stamps in here. I'm going to be doing Copic coloring today, so I'm using a Copic Safe ink, and I'm going to go ahead and stamp all of my images in black. Now, a lot of these images, the colors are going to be repeats because they're the same image basically. So I'm going to color a lot of the images off camera and some of them on camera. Now for the ducklings, I used Y21, Y11, and Y000. So I'm going to imagine that the light source is coming from the upper left-hand corner. So I'm going to fill in with the darkest color here at the bottom of his stomach, around his back, and the back of his head. Then I'm going to use that Y11 to bring that color out just a little bit further. And then finally, I'll use that Y000 to finish filling in any of the areas that I left white. And these are going to be the highlights of the chick there. Not a chick, a duckling. All right, so for the beak and the feet there, I'm using YR23 and YR21. Now remember, these are little tiny areas, so you could get away with one color. And then for the hat, I'm going to use B12 and B23. So I just want to create little blue hats here, a little bit of the darker color at the back, and then pull that out with the B12 so that it's a little brighter. And then anywhere I want to enhance those shadows, I'll just add a little bit extra of that B23. So I'm going to continue this exact same method for all of these little ducklings. And then after that, I'm going to go ahead and do the mama duck here. So for that, I'm going to make her white. I'm using W0 and W2. Again, keeping that upper left-hand corner as my light source. I'm going to add the W2 in all of the shadowed or shaded areas. And then I'm going to pull that out with the W0. Now, if you happen to go too dark with your W's here, or you get it a little bit darker than you want, you can always come in with the 0 blender pen and remove some of that ink. It's going to appear darker while the color is freshly laid down, but as soon as all that alcohol evaporates, it will get much lighter. So I would wait until after the color has dried to assess whether you need to come in with that 0 or not. And it does appear kind of dark right now, but again, once we get all the rest of the color around this duck, it's definitely going to read as white. So again, for the beak and the feet, I'm going to use the same combo that I used for the ducklings. And then again, for the hat and her little scarf thing here, I don't know, is it a scarf? It's not a scarf. Is it a capelet? That sounds like something. I don't know. Maybe I'm making up words here. If you know what this thing is called, let me know in the comments below. I think capelet sounds right, but I could be wrong. It's been known to happen very, very often. All right, with that done, we can move on to coloring the rest of our images. And for that, I used a mix of greens and browns, and then of course blues for the water. Once they were all done, I used the coordinating dies here to cut all of my images out. And now I have all of these to choose from to create my card. I'm going to put these to the side and start working on my card base and the background. I'm going to use the Beyond Basics A2 Scallops, Arches, and Window Coverpate dies to create this card base. Now here it claims to have 250 different combinations. I'm not going to test it. I'm going to take their word for it, but there are a lot of different dies in here that are great for mixing and matching. So I'm going to take this first scalloped one here, and it is about 5 1/4 inches tall, so almost a full A2 card size. We're going to use that as our base, and then I'm going to grab this this other arched die here from the very far right, and I'm going to cut it and use just the inside area. So this is going to cut this nice little frame, that little arched frame, but I'm also going to have that center area that I can use to stack on top of this scallop. All right, and to create the easel card base, I've cut 3 of the arched scalloped dies here. And then to create the scene on, I've cut one of that arched die over here, the one that cuts the frame and then also gives me that insert. I'm going to put this to the side. I don't need it, but I'm going to use that arched insert there to create my scene on. And you can see here that it fits beautifully inside that scalloped arch and leaves us a little bit of an edge there, a little detail edge. I'm going to put the other pieces aside, and I'm going to concentrate on building my scene first. So I've grabbed the Layers of Adventure scene building stencil, And this is a good one for creating easy background scenes. So there's a couple of different stencils in here. It gives you a couple options for clouds, some hills, some grass, lots of different options in here, and then some great little stars and butterflies too. I'm going to keep this very simple. I'm going to use this little hill here to create my ground. Now I will be using more of this stencil in an upcoming video, but for this one we're going to keep it really simple because I had those little die cut clouds, so I'm going to use those versus stenciling in clouds. I'm going to go ahead and lay this down, and then I'm going to mask off those stars and do some ink blending. I'm using a bright green here that matches the greens that I used when I did my Copic coloring on my images. And then after I remove the stencil, I'm just going to ink blend the rest of this panel with a very light blue, bringing it all the way down to the grass line here. And with that done, I can go ahead and start building out my scene. I don't use all of the images that I colored, but that's fine. I can keep those aside for use on a future card. I just wanted to create this little scene where the ducklings are interacting with each other. And these images are so sweet that they do make the cutest little scenes. And once I've figured out exactly how I want this to be, or at least close, I'm going to go ahead and move on to creating the actual easel card base. The first thing I need to do is create the mechanism that will allow the card to open like an easel. So I'm going to take one of those scalloped arches, and from the top down, I'm going to score it at 1 inch. Now, if you're using a different shape, like a standard card, standard A2 square card, just make sure you're scoring it from the top down at 1 inch. Then I'm going to flip it, and from the bottom up, I'm going to score it at the 2 inch mark. So again, from the bottom, measure over 2 inches and then score that. And then once I've got my scoring done, I'm going to go ahead and work in those score lines. So the top piece I'm going to fold forward, and the bottom score I'm going to fold backwards. With the easel mechanism created, I'm going to adhere the front and the back. So for the front one, I'm going to apply liquid adhesive to the bottom 2 inches, so below where I scored it. And I'm going to run that right at the top or right underneath that score line, and then all along the edges. And I like to use my finger to kind of tap the excess glue right there underneath that score line because I don't want it to squirt. I don't want it to squirt out and seep above that score line. I'm going to line that front up with the bottom there and then press that into place. So I'm only gluing the front to the bottom 2 inches of that easel mechanism. Next, I'm going to flip it over, and we're going to adhere the back to the easel mechanism. So I'm going to take that liquid adhesive, add that to the top 1 inch of that score line. Go ahead and line up that back of the card base. Push it into place, and then I'm going to place something heavy on top of it just to give it a couple of minutes to fully bond. And now the easel card base is constructed. So here you can see we've got that mechanism there in the middle that allows the front panel here to slide back and stand on display. Now we're going to add something there to catch that, to hold it in place. But for now, our base is created, and we can go ahead and assemble the rest of our card. So I've already adhered our little scene here on the front. So again, I'm going to use some liquid adhesive to adhere this panel to the center of our card base. Now, you'll notice that I've left the sentiment off of the front here, and that's because I'm going to use the sentiment to catch our front panel there when you open it up like an easel. Now, in order for that front panel there to rest against that sentiment and to hold it open, it has to have some height to it to create a lip for that front panel to rest against. So I stamped the sentiment here. This is also from that Quacktastic stamp set, and used the coordinating dies to cut it out. And then I cut 2 blanks, and I'm going to glue those one on top of the other, and then glue that sentiment on the very top. And this is going to give me just enough height to catch that front panel. Now, if you wanted to put your sentiment on the front and then use one of the other little images here to act as your catch for that front panel, you could absolutely do that. But I just liked the idea of the sentiment being inside the card. It's going to be visible here when the card stands on display, but I'm putting it pretty low so that I have plenty of room to write a message inside, and that message will be hidden by the front here when it is stood open on display. Now the only thing left to do is add a few finishing touches. The card's pretty simple, so I decided to add a little bit of sparkle to the clouds and the water using a Spectrum Noir brush pen here. And then I used a black jelly roll pen. I think it's a black souffle glaze pen. I'm not sure exactly what it's called. I'll have it linked below, just to add a little bit of shine to the duck's eyes. And you can see here in this close-up just how much fun that sparkle adds. And this was a fun card to create. I don't normally do interactive cards or fun fold cards, but I thought that I would step outside my comfort zone and try something new. And I don't think I did such a bad job. I'm kind of proud. I think it's a good one, especially for my first. Who knows, maybe I'll do more fun fold cards. If you guys liked this, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, make sure that you're subscribed so you don't miss any future videos. All of the featured products will be listed in the description box below. As always, I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.